Welcome to Critical Aspects of Law Enforcement, a podcast where we dive into the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being of the law enforcement officer.
Minor injury accident to the 2700 block of 156th Avenue Northeast.
All right, welcome back to Critical Aspects. I'm your host, Vernon Phillips, and today we're joined with Deputy Sheriff Cara. So, Cara, I'm glad to have you on the show. Glad that you're able to be here. Thank you for taking the time to jump on here. So, with that, we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. We'll get started. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just kind of your background, your history, your education, how long you've been in law enforcement, things like that.
Okay, well, I've been in local level law enforcement for about 13 years now. Actually, at the end of this month, I'll be transitioning to a state job as an investigator. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's exciting. I didn't grow up with family in law enforcement. I did have some family that was in the military, but it wasn't, no law enforcement in the family. However, I always knew growing up that I wanted to be in law enforcement. So of course, I pursued a criminal justice degree, which I always tell people now, don't do that unless you're wanting to be like a lawyer or something. That's not really the greatest use of a degree.
Yeah.
But I have my master's in clinical mental health counseling. I actually completed that 2 years ago. So I've worked on that while I've been in my career. As far as like the things I like to do, I love traveling. Love to travel. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I hate driving like after the fact, especially when I have to drive back, but I love driving there. I'll hop in a car and go to Ohio for a weekend. Just recently went up to West Virginia, drove up there. But probably one of the things I'm most known for hobby-wise is that I collect knives.
Okay.
That's a big part of my personality.
So what's the most unique knife that you own?
So I actually have 2 K-bars, which I love, but I'm going to say the one that's the most unique is the one that has my grandfather's name and rank engraved into it and his date of birth and death and stuff. So.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot there that I want to kind of jump into, but what is your everyday carry knife?
My everyday carry knife is just a little, oh gosh, you think I would know this because I carry it every day. It's just a little silver knife. It's a very common one. It sits in my pocket. It's my, cut up my apple knife or, whatever I need to use it for.
Clean my fingernails knife.
Yes.
Yep.
That's it.
So kind of just jumping back. So you've got your bachelor's in criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
We've already heard the caveat on that, hey, don't do that. But you've got your master's in, you said, clinical psychology?
Mental health counseling.
Okay, mental health counseling. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. So how does that coincide with your profession?
Wow. So great you asked that because it really does. Well, there's 2 parts to it. I don't know if y'all do the CIT stuff there where you're at, but so we do up here, and that's, obviously the mental health side of that is really what it is. I'm an instructor in that too. So, all this knowledge I've had previously of mental health issues and stuff really allowed me to become a good CIT officer.
Okay.
Then on the other side of the house of that, it's the mental health for officers. That's a largely untouched thing, very taboo.
Oh, yeah.
And so, one of the driving forces for me to get my degree was the fact that, when I present, information about mental health, mental wellness to like my fellow officers and stuff, I want to say, listen, I have this knowledge, I have this education, I have this expertise. I know what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah, well, that's good. So you probably have a library full of books from doing your master's, and
yes.
So you're probably familiar with this one right here.
Yes, I actually have read that one. It's been a while.
Yes, so this it reads like a textbook. It reads like a textbook, but there's a lot of good information in there.
Yes.
So that I'm just about finished with this. So this is my first time reading through this one, and I'm like, holy smokes, there's so much.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's awesome. So I'm glad that you are a proponent of that, that you are, pushing that you instruct others in that, because that is a huge, huge benefit to your agency, whether they know it or not,
Yeah.
is having somebody that is culturally competent, right? That
Yes.
understands the profession, but also understands the mental health side of the profession. I'll get it out. Just an overall wellness. And that is a huge benefit. So thank you for that. So as we kind of keep moving forward, so knowing what your master's is in, and that you are a part of pushing mental health, wellness, and just awareness for law enforcement, how do you take care of yourself? How do you just make sure that you are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually just taken care of? Like, how do you do all that?
Well, I don't go to the gym like I should go to the gym, but I think that's probably most
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of us that can kind of be into that category, and then
Yeah.
there's some that need to kind of maybe just dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But, yep,
It can become your whole personality, which is
yep,
just as bad as it not being a part of your
this is true.
what you are and stuff. So, I go walk dogs with my friend every afternoon typically. As far as like on the mental emotional level, I am always talking with my friends. Anytime that there's been something we've dealt with at work, I make sure that I flesh it out. I don't keep it in, I don't internalize it, and I don't try to forget about it. I talk through whatever points bother me about it. And on the spiritual level, I'm a Christian. I try to go to church every Sunday. I have a devotional that I read in the mornings, and my favorite thing is I listen to my Christian music in my patrol car. So
All right, well that's good. So, so did you say that you actually talk about it?
yes, I know.
Yes,
It's
it's
amazing
crazy.
what talking about it can
Oh
do.
man, I mean, it's almost like that's. What do you mean? You talk about your feelings? Yep. Yeah, we use the F word, feelings, right?
Yes.
Um, and the other aspect of that is a lot of people, they might focus on the physical, like all 80%.
Mm-hmm.
Some might focus on the emotional and the mental, and but a lot of people will leave out the spiritual side.
Yeah.
A lot of people will leave out that aspect of how just having a relationship with Christ can really benefit the way in which you walk through things, how you respond to things, because going to church, there's also a community there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that means there's support, and that means there's people there that care about you, that want what's best for you, and they encourage you and they come alongside you. So there's a whole aspect of the spiritual health that in law enforcement we don't talk about, because most people probably don't. They don't want to get sued, or don't want to get people all up, they don't want to get people offended and all that. But hey, it's a vital part of it, and it's a real
Yes.
part of it.
Absolutely.
So you did say that you walk your dogs, you walk dogs.
I walk. My friend has two dogs, and I walk her
Okay.
dogs with her.
Okay. All right. Well, because I was like, did I hear that right? You said you walk dogs, or you walk your dog. So you don't have a dog yourself.
I don't. I have a cat.
Okay.
I'm a
All
cat
right.
person.
It's okay. Oh, I forgive you. Um, sorry, I shouldn't say that. No, yeah, cats are okay if you want to be aggravated your whole life. I mean, I'm
It's
sorry.
funny. I actually rescued her while I was working shift one night.
All right. Is she aggravating?
No, she is the most precious thing.
Okay. We'll leave that alone. We'll move on from there. So, as we look over, just law enforcement, as you look over, your career, you said you've got about 13 years in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting ready to transition into the federal level or the state level,
State
correct?
level, yeah.
So that's exciting. Congratulations on that. So
Thanks.
as you look back over your career, and we'll kind of get a little bit serious here for a minute, but as you think about all the calls that you've been on, calls for service, what is one of the ones that is the worst, that kind of just really sits with you?
So, and it's kind of, it alludes back to another call, but um, back on June the 9th, 2022, we had he formerly worked with us and then went to the city and started working. So it was a guy that we all knew. But he had responded to a domestic violence situation and ultimately he was killed. Um, so when I got there, and I was one of the first deputies on scene and maybe like the second officer on scene, I unfortunately already knew that he was gone. But as I'm sitting there holding him, not to get too graphic, but holding his head, it brought back memories of a previous call that I'd been on where a woman had been shot in the back of her head by her husband and stuff. And so it just really also kind of made me realize how traumas intersect. You think that you've gotten over something maybe you dealt with years ago, but when you find yourself in a similar situation, you're going to remember that stuff.
So how did you process through that?
For me, initially, although my supervisors tried to get me to leave and go home, I told them, I need to be here on scene. I need to be here for those city police officers. Like, this is what's helping me process, is being right here and being useful at the time.
Okay. So what about after that? Was there anything after that you made sure that you were doing just to better help yourself push through that?
Well, part of it was making sure that I talked to people. We had the LEAPs come in, peer support, and we did, that kind of stuff. And I talked through it with my coworkers and stuff like that, my friends, and just thought through the different aspects of it. And sometimes that can be the hardest part because, honestly, like it's been, back a year ago, but one of the things that actually just came to my mind about the call that I'd never previously thought of when my chief and I were talking was, I can't imagine how he felt in that moment by himself, wondering where's my backup and stuff. So that actually brought forth some stuff that I had to then in turn deal with, because
that's a whole other avenue in your mind thinking about that. So.
Yes. So I just made sure to really just break down the parts of it and think about it. I had to get rid of some things, like I got, unfortunately, his blood all over my medical bag and stuff like that. And so, I had to get rid of that because that is not something I could have kept, because it would have been just that constant memory and stuff like that. And it's difficult. It can be difficult, but that's why you can't just go to sleep at night and never talk about it.
Yeah, so that's a big thing, is that you actually talked about it. You actually, processed it. You, even though it was difficult, you walked through it and you kind of, hammered out some of the things that you didn't really want to probably hammer out, but you needed to. And that's what helps us to kind of recover from that.
Yes.
Because like you said, it's not so much, there's a lot of research that's been done now that it's not so much one particular event, right? It's the culmination of multiple events, right, that really start to have that effect on law enforcement. So the more of those that you actually debrief from and kind of walk through and talk about, then the less likelihood that they'll have a prolonged effect on you. Doesn't mean in the moment, right, initially, for a short term, that it's not going to have some type of presenting concern in your life, but the likelihood of it presenting into something else is more prolonged, needing, more in-depth, let's say, treatment or some type of counseling, significantly reduces when you actually stop and deal with it.
Yes.
But that's not what we do, right? We don't deal with things as they come, one after the other. We kind of wait until we push it all in, and then everything comes out at once. And, and that's where we see, we have bad separations or involuntary separations, or, we see officers making bad decisions, or unfortunately we see officers, taking their life as a result of of just all the things they're trying to deal with, and they just can't.
Yeah.
And we talked briefly about this, but that's one of the reasons why I asked this question, is to stir the conversation to actually talk about the things you've gone through. Because the more you talk about it, the less likely it's going to end up manifesting in your life into some other presenting concern. So the more we talk about it, the more we can get ahead of it.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned leaps.
Yes.
So leaps as in Tim Rutledge leaps.
Yes. Tim Rutledge.
I know Tim. Tim is a great guy. Tim is a great friend of mine. So he's come out to our agency twice now, and I have, I'll call Tim quite often.
He knows his stuff.
He is a busy man.
Yes, he is.
But he's got some really awesome things that he does, and so you having your master's, in counseling, there's dynamics of what Tim does that is a whole lot different than SISM, right?
Yes.
And it's just so it's kind of like to me, I look at like the SISM aspect, right? You're old. I don't want to say old. Okay, the traditional way that we would debrief and defuse and all of that. That's kind of more of I look at it as the academic side, right? And then with what Tim brings in with peer support and like the one-on-one coaching and things like that, that kind of gets more down to the personal side, where it's like a practical application, right, of what you can actually do, and the benefit of it is so much better, in my opinion. So sorry for all of you SISM fanatics out there that you're diehard on that. I'm not saying it's not useful, because it is. There's definitely aspects of that are useful. I've got a friend that he teaches that, does an excellent job doing that. But when we start talking about, and even Tim talks about this, when you start talking about cops, this is what really works with cops, right? With law enforcement. So, but yeah, Tim's a great guy. So to kind of help, change the conversation a little bit. So we talked about the worst call. Now, what is the funniest or most awkward call for service that you've had?
So I still have to say, hands down, the funniest call was early in my career. We had this little gas station that sells like, the hot dogs and stuff out of it or whatever. And this was a shift of, we had about 12 people on shift everywhere, from our patrol deputies or patrol officers to the DUI to the K9 to our sergeant, lieutenant, and stuff like that. But so the area I was patrolling in is where the call came in. And dispatch had said that the person was calling because the cashier would not put their hot dog into a bag, because the cashier didn't want to touch the person's food. And we're like, this is the most ridiculous. So we all showed up to let this person know how ridiculous it was to call 911 over that.
How dare you not bag my hot dog?
Right.
I am paying for this service. I am paying for this gas station hot dog that's probably been on the roller, for the last 3 days.
Yes.
So you're taking a chance on getting the hot dog anyway.
Right.
And then you want to bag it up like you're going to just take it home and save it for another couple of days. That's very interesting. So they called 911 because they would not bag the hot dog.
Yes, absolutely. And we thought, like, you've got to be kidding. Like, there's like real stuff happening, and you're mad because they won't pick up your hot dog when you can pick up your hot dog and put it in a bag. So.
Oh, that is pretty funny. So as you look back over your career, what are 3 of the most significant things that you've learned in law enforcement?
Well, the first is trust your gut. Like, always trust your gut. If it feels like it's off, it is. The second thing, and I was taught this in the academy, is be nice until it's time not to be nice anymore. And that also goes back to really helping to de-escalate situations, because, we're not going to somebody who's had a great day. I mean, if they're calling us, it's not a good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, sometimes people's reaction is anger or fear. It's over the top, right? But if you're nice to them, that can bring them down. That can change like everything. And then the last one is probably like a really controversial one because this is also kind of up there with the things that people don't want to talk about. But bad officers make us all look bad. So you have to, as part of protecting and serving, is protecting people from those unethical officers,
Mhm.
or those ones that are breaking the laws. So when you see that stuff happening, we all have that. It's everywhere. Kids, especially, snitches get stitches mentality, right? But you can't allow someone to be unethical and break the law and just sit back and watch them do it, because then you're just as much in the wrong as they are.
Yeah. Wow. So I haven't heard that one yet, but I want to even add on to that with that. So with bad officers, I would even add in the retired on duty ones as well.
Yes.
Because while they may not be doing something, like they're breaking the law or whatever, they're doing something unethical. If you're retired on duty, you are a danger to yourself and you're a danger to those
Yes.
around you.
Absolutely. I've seen that before, actually. Yes.
Yep. But yeah, so those are definitely three good points. So knowing that law enforcement is a very demanding profession, and also the fact that you have your master's in counseling, do you feel that we prepare individuals enough who are coming into the profession, who are just getting into the job?
I think mostly yes. And that really is going to depend on the department because, obviously academies are great. But once you get out of the academy, forget everything you've taught because that's, a how to do it, but it's not a how it's done type thing,
Mm-hmm.
Because once you actually get out of the academy and get into real policing, like it's 100% different, right?
Yeah.
So I think really the biggest part to doing enough to prepare somebody is the FTO process. Make sure that nothing is being skipped in it. I realize that sometimes when departments are short or whatever and they need those boots on the grounds, they may have to, they may skip a process here or there. But really, if you have someone who's never been in law enforcement, they need to get as much on the job training as possible. And that's why I really think the FTO process is super important.
Yeah, and with that, so with FTOs, I think that when we start talking about mental health and the stigma, right, and how it's kind of a taboo subject and nobody wants to
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, I think sometime that gets passed down from
Yes.
FTOs, right?
Yes, it does.
It's like a reoccurring cycle that because you show up to a call and let's say it's somebody in there. I'm not sure how it works with y'all, but they say they're day one of first phase, and and it's a suicide, and they get there, and somebody had taken their head off with a shotgun, and the trainees look at us like, oh man, this is not right. Like they're trying to process this,
Mm-hmm.
and they look over the FTO, and the FTO is just kind of sitting there. And we all know that in their mind, the FTO is like, oh gosh, right? Another one, or I've seen
Yeah.
this. I've seen this too many times. Like, oh, I'm tired of seeing this. Like, it's affecting them,
Yes.
but they're not going to show any emotion because they've got a trainee, right?
That's
And the
right.
trainee is going to look at the FTO and be like, okay, well, they're not showing any emotion, so I'm not saying nothing. If they're not
Right.
saying nothing, I'm not saying nothing. So now what we've done is we've indoctrinated them and started the process all over again. Right.
Yes.
So I think that that's something that I think FTOs could really start to work on, especially with ones who are just coming in that don't have any experience. And hey, when you get back in the car, be like, yeah, so we can agree that was pretty messed up. Like that's not what
Mm-hmm.
we're, people aren't supposed to see that, but we see it because this is part of our, it's part of our profession. Unfortunately, these are some of the calls that we go to. These are some of the things we're going to see, but it's okay to it's okay to decompress and talk about it, kind of debrief it a little bit. Like, but you and I both know what happens is what?
Just ignore it.
Yep, nobody says anything, and then it just kind of goes on from there.
It's that very dangerous suck it up buttercup mentality.
Yep, there is. Yep, that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stow it, stuff it, stack it. We don't get mental health days, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is ignorant, right?
Yes.
And we know, and and I know this, that mentality statistically does not work, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
may have that mentality, you may walk around like, hey, I I've got it all together, nothing phases me, but behind it all, there's probably you're probably alcoholic, probably, going through relationships like
Yes.
ridiculous, probably 3, 4 marriages later, maybe dependency on drugs. you know,
Mm-hmm.
on the inside, you're held together with, bubble gum and duct tape because, you're not dealing with the things that you see on a regular basis. So,
And what a lot of, I think, especially your departments or agencies that don't buy into it, is that eventually that translates into how an officer works, how they treat the public they're dealing with.
yep. Because if they're internalizing that and it creates a hard, calloused, outer, I'm the tough guy. Nothing phases me. Like you said, how's that interaction between the public?
Yeah,
That's that tone they're going to set anytime they interact with somebody from the public. They're like, I don't want to talk to that guy. That guy's a right.
absolutely.
And then that person comes on scene, and what happens in the situation?
It escalates
It,
it.
it escalates it because they show up and they're like, probably MF for this and MF for that, and what are you doing? And everybody else is like, oh. So
Yep.
I think every agency has one of those.
Yes.
And if you happen to listen, you're like, I don't think so. That's probably you, right?
That's right.
Yep. Uh, so as you look back, over your career and when you started and going through the academy, going through FTO, and the different things that you've done in your 13 years, what advice would you give to someone just starting out?
Never skip the opportunity for training. You know, I tell people, if you get to that point where you think you know it all, it's time to hang up your badge, because that's a very dangerous place to be. And I mean, life is progressive, right? You've got to learn and keep up with the times and with things that are going on, and you have to better yourself. You can better yourself by, just working every day and the people you work with, but you can also and need to better yourself by training. And that's whatever kind of training is available to you. That's going to your range and giving your all on your range days, on your defensive tactic days. That's going and learning about other things. So I've been very fortunate in both departments that I've worked for to be able to basically attend any training that I wanted to go to.
Wow, that's awesome. Especially with training, there's always something you can learn. Even if you're sitting in a class and you're like, oh my goodness, this is terrible, right?
Yeah.
There's something, because you've probably been in a class. I've been in several classes. I'm sitting there and I'm like, you should not be an instructor. Like,
Yes.
what are you talking about? But there's something that you can learn
Right.
from that, even if it's a takeaway for yourself. If you do any instructing yourself, like, okay, these are the things I'm not going to do.
Yes,
When
absolutely.
I talk to a group of people, I'm probably not going to do this or say this, but there's always something that you can learn, something you can pick up to better yourself. And absolutely. And I think that, people, like you said, get in law enforcement are like, hey, I'm going to get my, my bachelor's in criminal justice. I'm going to get my master's in criminal justice. And that, I mean, that's great if that's what you want to do, but that also kind of pigeonholes you to kind of criminal justice.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be, a career in law enforcement, that has its benefits, but, do something that can add to what you're already going to learn in law enforcement, right? So you're going to do 30 years in law enforcement. So what is a bachelor's or a master's in criminal justice at the end of the day, going to do for you when you can, maybe get into something that's special, like a specialty program that comes alongside and accompanies that, right? What you're
And
already
what's it
going to,
going to do for you after you get out
yeah.
also?
So, I mean, you could probably go and teach at a college or something like that. But like with you, you went ahead and you got your counseling degree. That's a huge benefit, right? So you mirror that with your law enforcement career and experience. That's a huge benefit. I mean, interweaving those together
Mm-hmm.
not only helps you, but it helps those you work with.
Yes.
So there's a lot of other avenues that you can look at. You can kind of examine. So don't just get focused in on one specific area that you're like, oh, hey, I got to do this. Well,
Right.
but even in a criminal justice, like cognate, there's so many other things you can do that you can specialize. If you decide to do something in criminal justice, you can specialize in, some type of, leadership or management or even
Mm-hmm.
crisis intervention or something like that within the context of criminal justice. But, if you then do that, right, better yourself that way and bring some more tools to better equip yourself.
Right.
So I
And
think training is
doubly
huge.
when you go to trainings and you learn things, take it back to your people. Share with them. So you're helping better them also.
Yeah, but if you share things, then you're not the person that everybody wants to come to.
We shouldn't gatekeep stuff. That's a big problem too, I think.
Yep, and that's kind of why I said that, because you get, people that go and then they don't want to share the things they've learned. It's like, well, the last time I checked, I think we're all on the same team, right?
Right.
So if you have something that can better somebody else, why are we not sharing it?
Exactly.
So, but I appreciate that. So yes, training is definitely a huge, huge, huge thing. So what advice, kind of on the same lines, what advice would you offer to, somebody who's been in the profession for 10, 15, 20 plus years?
Well, first, law enforcement is not what it was 15 plus years ago. It's progressive. The world is progressive. And we really have to be mindful of that. You really can't police like they did in the old days and stuff. It's just not how it is. And it's not beneficial to anybody to stay stuck in that mindset of, well, this is how I did it way back when. And then on the same token, it's a lot of your old timers that are the ones that keep their heads stuck in the sand more about the mental health issues and mental wellness overall. So really,
We refer to them as dinosaurs.
yeah, I know some of those too. It's just my advice to those ones, to those people that have been in for a while, and I'm between that 10 and 15 year mark, but I think it's more of your 15 to 20 plus year mark, is to not to be proactive and to be progressive and stuff. And also, like you said, with that retired on duty, get out of that mindset. We all know complacency kills. And that's it's not that it just kills that officer. It could kill your partner. It could kill an innocent person. So I think once someone's got to that stage in their life and they're just really not about it anymore, they probably don't need to be on the streets.
Yeah, and they should probably just go ahead and retire.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's, if you're to that point where you're retired on duty, like you said, I mean, you're a danger to yourself, to those around you, to the community. But not only that, it could also be a morale killer.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
we want to get into a whole other conversation. Let's talk about morale and how that gets to be, in the tank, where a lot of times it ends up. And a lot of times it's because of leadership that is kind of stuck in that, well, this is the way we've always done it, right?
Yes.
Well, when I was, kicking in doors and, well, whatever they're doing, they'd say, well, this is what we used to do. Well, okay, well, what you did in 1970, you can't do today, right?
Right.
there was a guy I worked with several years ago, and he had worked for New Orleans, and this was back in like the late '60s into the '70s, and he would talk about all kinds of crazy things, but he had that old, that kind of that old mindset, and
Mm-hmm.
his thing about dealing with things was he was a functional alcoholic. I mean, and he said, yeah, after shift we would just all drink until we passed out, or and then we'd get up and do it all over again. He's
Wow.
like, that's just what we did. That's how we dealt with it. And I think that is, that type of mentality like that, just, well, this is what we did and this is how we've always done it. It can be cancerous. I mean,
Yes.
obviously there's some things that we do that are proven, that have been, over the years, are the steady go-to things that we do. Right. But when it comes to taking care of yourself, taking care of your well-being, and taking care of each other, those kind of things change, those evolve,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so I think that as over the next 5 to 10 years, I think you'll see a change in this. I think you'll see a shift, as some of the older mentality gets out, because it's something that's been ingrained for generations, right?
Yeah.
That we don't talk about our feelings, we don't talk about the call and how it makes us feel, because that's a bad word, right? The F word's a bad word, and we don't say the
Mm-hmm.
F word. But I think that as time progresses on, the more we talk about it now on the forefront, 5, 10 years from now, you'll see the ones that are now, they're going to be 5, 10, 15 years into their career. They're like, well, we've always talked about this, right?
Yes.
We've always talked about taking care of yourself, and we've always, debriefed after critical incident traumatic event or high stress event, right? This is something we've always done, right? We go and talk to people all the time. So I think that you'll see that organically change
Yeah.
over the next several years. But right now, it's just you're in that tough time where you're trying to push it, right? You're trying to make it forefront, but you're still kind of getting some of that pushback,
Oh yeah.
from some of the dinosaurs are like, well, that's not the way we did it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, and we all know what happens to dinosaurs. So I probably shouldn't say that, but I mean, but that's the thing, right? Is you deal with the things that are manifesting in your life,
Right.
and you deal with it on your terms, right? Controlling it and dealing with it the best you can, or it's going to deal with you.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's not if it manifests, it's when.
And
So
I think unfortunately a lot of people, or probably especially your more stoic officers, they think, well, it's not going to bother me. It's not going to bother me. But probably one of my favorite quotes is, "Trauma and stress are no respecter of man." So it doesn't matter who you are, whether you want to think it won't, it will, and if you don't deal it, like we've said, it's going to come back.
yep. Yep. And I do want to say that they're not everybody who's been in the career 20, 25, 30 plus years is that way.
Yeah.
There are some that are very, very much a proponent of, just wellness in general, taking care of
Yes.
people. So I'm fortunate that we have people like that in our agency. I know there's other agencies around that have people like that. So I want to make sure that we interject that I, give that credit where credit is due, because we do have people that have been in the career for a long time that see the importance of it. Right.
Yes.
And they want to see more of it because they didn't have it. They're the ones that look back and they're like, man, I wish we had this 20 years ago.
Right.
Because now we talk about all the stuff that they dealt with, that it's law enforcement still dealing with. Right. So not talking about it doesn't make it go away.
Exactly.
And not talking about it doesn't resolve it. So, there's ways to start integrating that. And some of those that have been in a profession for a long time that are now see the need for it can be some really big proponents of this.
Yes, absolutely.
They can be your best cheerleader. Don't call them a cheerleader because they probably wouldn't like that, right? But they can be your best, spokesperson for that when
Mm-hmm.
they're like, man, I wish I had this and I didn't, and this is why.
Yeah.
So it is. So just want to make sure I plug that in there. So it's not everybody's retired on duty and cynical and shut down and jaded and a dinosaur.
And, it's not always necessarily those people that are 15, 20 plus years. You have some 3, 4 year
Yep.
young guy, like really young, physically young, mentally guys who are also, very anti the mental wellness
Yep.
aspect of it because, they've also, and likely it's that they've grown up through a childhood of having that, we don't show emotion stuff. So it's on both ends of the spectrum, you have some hard ones that you have to break.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just, you know, and it's not just your old male cops either. It's also, it's
Yes.
across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody.
Absolutely.
And it's really up to the individual. So how much, as we kind of, start to kind of wrap things up, how much has your faith in God played a part in your where you are now and in your career?
It plays all the parts. I've been through things in life. Everybody's been through things in life, and for me, a lot of what has gotten me through things in life is my faith in God and my realization that despite what I've gone through, despite the valleys and the traumatic times and things that He's let me walk through, it's all been for a purpose. There's purpose in the pain, is what I like to say. There's a reason for everything, and a lot of what I've gone through in my life has really prepared me for the cop that I am and how I am and stuff. So, I just, and everybody's not, real big into faith or into Christianity or whatever, but I think that everybody needs to have something, you know. I obviously believe it should be Jesus Christ, but it's not everybody's thing.
Absolutely.
But He's definitely, I wouldn't be where I am right now if He had not opened and closed certain doors in my life.
Wow, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And kind of, I'm gonna shoot you one last question, and it's gonna be kind of just to add in there, but we talked a lot about mental health. We talked a lot about the stigma. We didn't really touch a lot on the current issue of suicide in law enforcement or just in the first responder community in general. But obviously, we know it's there. We see the numbers every year that come out, and that they still are elevated numbers, right? I have my own personal beliefs of why they stay elevated. That's because one, the person feels like they're all alone, and that they're the only one dealing with it because of the stigma, right? Because we don't talk about it. So they get to this point where they feel like they are the only one. I'm the only one dealing with this. And number two is the devil's a liar, and he will absolutely capitalize on your despair, your hopelessness. And, so those are kind of my two personal, beliefs as far as that. But if there was somebody, who's just going through a crisis and they're, maybe they've been having thoughts of suicide or taking their life, what would you say to somebody in that situation?
Definitely find that person. Everybody should have that person that they should reach out to. And, you said hopelessness, and I think that's really a big thing that is kind of the tipping edge for someone who is thinking about committing suicide because they feel like there's nothing left, right? They feel like it's easier for everybody in my life if I'm not here, and it's just I don't have any other options. And, it's easy for us to say, hey, you do have options, you don't give up, hang on, and stuff like that. But if we're not really out there practicing what we preach and being there for these people, then it's really hard for us to just say, hey, do this, if we're not going to say, I'm here for you while you do this. And I would tell anybody, I don't care if you're on the other side of the world, I'm 100% available for anybody who is there at that point because, once in my life I was there pre-law enforcement, but, and I have friends who have experienced suicide. It's a hard thing, and it really impacts a lot more. And I think a lot of people, they realize it will hurt, but they don't think it hurts the people for a long time.
Yeah. A lot of times, in that state, in that state of crisis for them, right? That's the most logical decision that they've come
Yes.
to, right? This is the most logical conclusion. Now, for us on the outside looking in, we're like, that's not logical. But they're also dealing with something that is so intense, right? So unbearable that they just want it to stop. So I think sometimes we got to step back and say, look, we need to be available, and we also need to know how to respond.
Yes.
And to interact with somebody appropriately, right? But also with some competence and just knowing how to deal with them and talk to them, because sometimes somebody might just come and be like, "Well, that's stupid. Why would you even think about that?" It's because
that's why.
It's because that's why I'm not going to say anything, right? Because
Yes.
you're going to respond that way. So it's
that's why I think suicide awareness training in
Yes.
law enforcement is super important, because if you are not that person that someone can come to, you need to be cognizant enough to say, let me get you somebody.
Yeah.
And then get them somebody.
Yep. Absolutely. So, well, if somebody does, want to reach out to you, are you have your LinkedIn or anything that you would want to share with anybody, or?
Yeah, I don't know the actual LinkedIn address right now, but.
Well, I can put that in the show notes if you're good with that.
Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
way, if somebody wants to kind of talk to you, if something that we've talked about, they're like, oh man, I'd really like to talk to her and pick her brain on this.
And I have an email address that you can add also that they can reach me on.
Okay. All right. So I'll throw all that in, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I feel like we've covered a lot of things. We've talked, had some good conversations. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate you tuning in and listening to Critical Aspects of Law Enforcement. Remember to subscribe to the podcast and share this resource with your fellow officers. The goal of Critical Aspects is to serve, support, and sustain the law enforcement professionals. So head over to www.criticalaspects.org for more resources and information. And as always, God bless and be safe.